Hello YouTube, this is Travels with Largo64, a collection of pictures. Starting in Pasadena, California, there is the City Hall, taken at night, with a special filter on the camera so that the light didn't appear green. This is a church building in Pasadena that replaced one that was damaged in an earthquake. I regard it as a piece of sculpture. Here's the City Hall again. This particular City Hall is in a European style, and it's actually been used in some older movies as a European backdrop. This semi-skyscraper in Los Angeles has reflected in its side a church across the street. Makes kind of an interesting picture. Here's some glass and steel from a building in downtown Los Angeles. I like modern architecture a lot. As this picture will show you. This is the Arco Plaza, downtown Los Angeles. I've called it Spider-Man's playground, looking up between the two towers. This is in an area near Los Angeles called Heritage Square. This is the Hale House, an early Victorian house. This house is actually a residence in Beverly Hills. It was built for a movie, I believe, and some people call it the fairy tale house. I like night pictures, especially of moving lights like these rides at the Los Angeles County Fair. This building is an interesting look. This is the Beckman Auditorium at the California Institute of Technology, also in Pasadena. Above Los Angeles is Griffith Park, and this is the observatory. This particular observatory has been used in movie backdrops going back to the old movies with Buster Crabbe. This moonscape is Los Angeles' county park called Vasquez Rocks. I'm getting ahead of myself here. This is a pastoral scene in Simi Valley, California. And now we're going to San Juan Bautista. This little casa was actually somebody's home, later on a restaurant, a very nice Italian restaurant. Now we're at the coast at Pebble Beach, looking at one of the fairways. I'm not a golfer, sadly, but I do like the look of golf courses. Here is the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose. I worked there for 2 years as a guide on the tours. Here's part of the Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. You can see Aliotto's restaurant in the background. Coming up, some Dungeness crabs. Doesn't that make your mouth water? This is also at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. Also in San Francisco, Chinatown has some interesting signs. Wish I could read them. And, of course, here's the Golden Gate Bridge, taken from Fort Point. It's very difficult to get a decent picture of the bridge because of its length and so forth. It's hard to get an angle, get a good shot. Just a little bit of the natural wildflowers that come out in March, of all times, in Northern California. This looks like a crop, too, but these are windmills producing electricity in the hills around Tehachapi, California. These redwoods from the north coast of California are, some of them, 300 feet tall. And here's the house where Arnold works. This is the Capitol in Sacramento, California. This is from the top of Morro Rock, and I've got to tell you that is some climb to get up there. And at 8,000 feet, it takes a lot of air out of your lungs to do it. This is Mount Shasta. It used to be completely white, even in the summer. Now the snow is mostly gone. This is the Carson Mansion in Eureka, California. It's a private residence now, and actually a club, and it's not available for the public. This beautiful beach is near Gold Beach, Oregon. It shows some of the really spectacular rocky coast of Oregon. Here we are in Oregon again. This is some farmland outside of Salem, the capital. I did a painting from this. I also did a painting from this photograph of a barn in the same general vicinity outside Salem, Oregon. This is the north coast of Oregon. This is a place called Foul Weather Point, where the wind was blowing at about 50 miles an hour when I took this photograph. This is Crown Point, overlooking the Columbia River Gorge in Oregon, on the Oregon side. And here is the Columbia River from the Oregon side, looking across to Washington State. Spectacular view there. This is a view of Mount Hood, peeking up over some other hills there. There's going to be a better view of it in just a moment from on Mount Hood. We drove up there, and within a very short distance of the lodge, you're up at almost 10,000 feet. I opened the car door and realized that I had brought a lot of atmosphere with me. Suddenly got very thin. This is one of many waterfalls along the Columbia Highway, the Columbia River Highway. This snag, as the tree like this is called, is overlooking Bend, Oregon. Bend used to be not much more than a village. It's grown a lot. And this really spectacular artwork is in an unusual place. It's in a roadside rest stop on the Platte River in Nebraska. Here's another Nebraska rest stop. Apparently they take their public art rather seriously. Now we're going to New York. This may make some of you sad, and it does me. This is the Twin Towers as they looked in 1974, when they were pretty new. Here's from the top of the Empire State Building, a falcon's eye view of New York City. I have no idea which direction we're looking. I'm not really familiar with the city. Here we are looking from in another area from the top of the Empire State Building. And in just a moment, we're going to see another rather famous building, the Chrysler Building, in the center here, toward the back a little bit. You'd see these things in pictures of King Kong and so on. And this is Wall Street, with Trinity Church at the end of the street. It's like a canyon there. Speaking of canyons, now we're in Bryce Canyon, Utah. These formations are called hoodoos. This one looks more like a castle. It's also at Bryce Canyon. And coming up is another canyon which I regard as even grander than the Grand Canyon. This is Zion National Park in Utah. Some of the most spectacular landforms I've ever seen. This really interesting mesa is in southern Wyoming on Highway 80, Interstate 80. It's one of few features, though otherwise rather flat land. This is Red Rock Canyon, which is near Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're just about to jump to the other side of the world, to Hong Kong, the village of Aberdeen, where boat people are said sometimes to have spent their entire lives on these boats. And now to Japan. This is the Silver Shrine. The Japanese call it Ginkakuji. This is taken through some trees in the garden there. And now we're looking at a little closer view of the same building, taken both by me in 1972. Speaking of that 1972 trip, this is me in the picture here. A lot thinner than you see me today, and the lady sitting next to me is my mother, who was younger then than I am now. This is the footbridge in the Holy Garden of the Heian Shrine in Kyoto, Japan. Now we're skipping over to the Middle East. This is in Jerusalem. It's an aqueduct that was constructed by the Romans. And now we're going to be looking through the Turkish wall at the Mount of Olives. That building on top is an intercontinental hotel. I actually had lunch there one afternoon. Here's the Wailing Wall with the grotto to the left of center a little bit. That's where men go and bob up and down as they pray. And Al-Aqsa. This is the dome of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is on top of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And the last photograph in this set is the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount. This is a holy place, not only to Christians and Jews, but also to Muslims. And that is all the photographs. They're all by me, Largo64.